Sarah and Michael walked out of the wedding venue hand in hand as confetti rained down around them. Their friends and family cheered from the steps of the Botanical Garden in Manchester. Michael squeezed her hand gently and whispered, "Wait here for just a moment. I have a surprise." He led her through the parking area, and there, gleaming under the afternoon sun, sat a silver luxury sedan with an enormous red bow across the hood. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. "Michael, is this?" "It's yours," he said, grinning. "Every queen needs her chariot." Sarah threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. In all her 28 years as a marketing consultant, she had never received such an extravagant gift. This was more than a car. It was a symbol of their new life together. The first month of marriage was blissful. Sarah drove her new car to client meetings across the city, feeling confident and successful. But one Tuesday morning, everything changed. She was halfway to her office in the business district when the engine suddenly cut out. No warning lights. No strange sounds. The car simply died on the busy motorway. Sarah's heart raced as she maneuvered to the shoulder, horns blaring behind her. She tried the ignition again. Nothing. She grabbed her phone and searched for the nearest mechanic, finding a well-reviewed garage just 3 miles away. Within 30 minutes, a tow truck arrived, driven by a middle-aged man named George. "Let's see what we've got here," George said, sliding into the driver's seat. He turned the key once, and the engine roared to life immediately. Sarah blinked in confusion. "But I tried that at least 10 times. George stepped out and wiped his hands on his coveralls. "Ma'am, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this vehicle. Everything checks out perfectly. Sometimes these modern cars have computer glitches that reset themselves." Sarah paid him, feeling foolish, but as she drove away, an uncomfortable feeling settled in her stomach. Something wasn't right. A week later, Michael was rushing to prepare for an important presentation at his architecture firm. "Sarah, love, could you grab my portfolio from my study? Just leave it on the bed. I need to shower quickly." "Of course," Sarah called back. She walked into his study, found the large black portfolio exactly where he said it would be, and carefully placed it on their bed. She even straightened the corners to make sure it was centered. Then she went to the kitchen to make coffee. 5 minutes later, Michael emerged from the bathroom, dressed except for his tie. "Sarah, where's the portfolio?" "On the bed, exactly where you asked." They both entered the bedroom. The bed was empty. They searched the entire room, then expanded to the hallway. Nothing. Michael was growing frantic when he walked into the kitchen to grab his phone. He opened the refrigerator to get water, and there it was, sitting on the top shelf next to the milk. He held it up slowly. "Sarah, how did this get in here?" "I didn't put it there." Sarah's voice rose in panic. "Michael, I swear I put it on the bed. I remember doing it." Michael looked at her for a long moment, then simply nodded. "It's fine. I'm late anyway." But Sarah could see the confusion in his eyes. The doubt. That evening, she sat alone in their living room, replaying the moment in her mind. She had placed that portfolio on the bed. She was absolutely certain. So how had it ended up in the refrigerator? 3 months into their marriage, Sarah began feeling unusual. Her period was late, and she felt constantly exhausted. Michael insisted on taking her to the doctor. Dr. Patterson, a kind woman in her 50s, smiled warmly after reviewing the test results. "Congratulations, you two. You're going to be parents." Sarah felt the world tilt. Michael grabbed her hand, his eyes wide with joy and shock. They had hoped for this, but not so soon. On the drive home, they were both quiet, processing the enormous news. Then Michael suddenly pulled into the parking lot of an upscale Italian restaurant. "We're celebrating," he declared. "This is huge." They ordered sparingly since Sarah was already feeling nauseous, but they laughed, took photos, and talked about baby names and nursery colors. For a few hours, everything felt perfect again. The next morning, Michael brought breakfast to her in bed: scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and orange juice. Sarah smiled gratefully and took a bite of the eggs. Moments later, she was running to the bathroom, retching violently. She tried the juice next, but even that made her stomach turn. She pushed everything away and crawled back under the covers. Later that afternoon, Sarah woke to the sound of a lawnmower outside. The gardener Michael had hired was cutting the grass in their back garden. As the smell of fresh-cut grass wafted through the window, something stirred deep inside Sarah. The scent was intoxicating, almost calling to her. She found herself walking outside as if in a trance. Television. Did Sarah really put that portfolio in the fridge? Something strange is happening, and it's about to get worse. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell icon so you don't miss Chapter 2, where Sarah's cravings take a shocking turn. Drop a comment below if you've experienced anything unexplainable during pregnancy. Let's continue this journey together. The gardener had moved to the front of the house, leaving piles of fresh grass clippings scattered across the back lawn. Sarah stood there, drawn by a force she couldn't explain. The smell was overwhelming, sweet and earthy, and somehow appetizing. She glanced around to make sure she was alone, then bent down and picked up a handful of the damp grass. She brought it to her nose and inhaled deeply. Her mouth watered. Before she could think about what she was doing, she took a small bite. It was cold, crunchy, refreshing. It tasted exactly like the coleslaw she used to love before pregnancy had turned her stomach against everything. She took another bite, then another. She moved behind the tall hedge where no one could see her and continued eating, handful after handful, until her craving was finally satisfied. Sarah wiped her hands on her jeans, went inside, and drank a glass of water. She felt better than she had in days. When Michael came home that evening, she was already dressed and looking healthy. "You're looking much better," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Are you sure you're feeling okay?" "I'm perfectly fine," Sarah assured him. "I think the morning sickness is passing." But the cravings didn't pass. Over the next few days, Sarah found herself thinking constantly about grass. She would wake up wanting it, dream about it during work meetings. Finally, she began packing small bags of grass clippings in her purse before leaving for work. One afternoon at her marketing office in the business district, Sarah sat at her desk pretending to review campaign strategies. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small paper bag, and discreetly started chewing grass. But it wasn't enough. The bag was empty too quickly. She pressed it to her face, inhaling the lingering scent, but her craving only intensified. Unable to focus, Sarah grabbed her keys and rushed out, telling her assistant she wasn't feeling well. She drove home faster than she should have, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. When she arrived, she didn't even bother going inside to change. She went straight to the garden, found the pile of grass clippings the gardener had left, and scooped up handfuls. In the kitchen, she dumped the grass onto a white ceramic plate. Then she opened the cabinet, pulled out a bottle of olive oil, and drizzled it generously over the grass. She sat at the kitchen table and began eating with a fork, as if it were a normal salad. She didn't hear the front door open. She didn't hear Michael's footsteps. But she felt his presence, and when she looked up, he was standing in the doorway, frozen in shock. Grass was hanging from her mouth. Oil dripped from her fingers. "Sarah, what are you doing?" I just had a craving," she whispered, unable to meet his eyes. "There's food in this house. Actual food." His voice was controlled but strained. "If you wanted something specific, you could have called me. I would have ordered anything you wanted." "I don't want anything else," Sarah said quietly. "This is what I need." Michael stared at her for a long moment, then grabbed his phone. "Get your bag. We're going to the hospital right now." At Manchester General Hospital, Dr. Patterson ran tests and asked careful questions. Finally, she sat down across from them in her office. "Mr. Thompson, there's a rare condition called pica. It sometimes occurs during pregnancy. Women develop cravings for non-food items. I've seen cases of women craving ice, clay, even laundry detergent. Grass is unusual but not unheard of. But is it harming the baby? Michael's voice cracked slightly. We'll monitor everything closely. The main concern is nutritional deficiency and potential contamination from pesticides or bacteria. Sarah, you need to eat proper meals. This cannot continue. On the drive home, neither of them spoke. When they arrived, Sarah went straight to the bedroom while Michael sat in the living room, his head in his hands. He had never felt so helpless. The following week, Sarah returned to work, determined to act normal. Her company was distributing educational supplies to local schools, and boxes of chalk had been stacked near her office window for sorting. As Sarah walked past the boxes, she paused. The chalky smell hit her nostrils, and before she knew what she was doing, she had picked up a piece. She held it to her nose, then touched it to her tongue. The taste was dry, powdery, but somehow satisfying. She sat at her desk and quietly ate 3 full pieces of chalk before her manager, David, walked in. He stood in the doorway, speechless. Sarah, are you eating chalk? She looked up, mortified, white powder on her lips. I'm so sorry, David. It's just pregnancy cravings. I know it sounds insane. David backed out slowly. Just take care of yourself, Sarah. That evening, Michael's phone rang. It was David. Mr. Thompson, I'm calling because I'm concerned about your wife. Today I witnessed her eating chalk in her office. Multiple pieces. I think she needs more help than she's getting. Michael thanked him and ended the call, his chest tight with worry. This was escalating beyond medical explanations. Something was deeply wrong, and he didn't know how to fix it. Michael sat in his car outside his mother's house in the suburbs of Manchester, trying to gather his thoughts. He had come to invite her to their family gathering, but now he needed to talk to someone he trusted. His mother, Helen, had always been perceptive, sometimes unervingly so. Inside, Helen poured tea and studied her son's face. You look exhausted, Michael. How is Sarah? How is my future grandchild? Michael hesitated, then everything poured out. Mum, something is very wrong. Sarah eats grass. She eats chalk. Her mood swings are extreme. One moment she's crying, the next she's screaming at me over nothing. Yesterday she accused me of calling her fat when I simply said her feet looked swollen. Helen's expression grew serious. She set down her teacup carefully. Michael, have you considered that this might not be medical? Mum, please don't start. I'm serious. What if this has something to do with Victoria? Michael stood abruptly. No, absolutely not. We dealt with her years ago. The prayers, the deliverance, all of it. Victoria is gone. She's been gone for over a decade. What an elder sees sitting down, Helen said quietly. A young person cannot see even from the tallest tree. I came here to invite you to our family gathering this weekend, not to dig up the past. Michael grabbed his keys. I'll see you Saturday. As he drove home, his mother's words echoed in his mind. Victoria. He hadn't allowed himself to think about her in years. She had started appearing in his dreams when he was just 8 years old. At first, she was simply a playmate, a girl his age who would meet him in dream worlds and play games with him. But as Michael grew older, Victoria grew with him. By the time he was a teenager, she called herself his wife and became possessive. In university, the dreams became disturbing. Victoria would appear during the day, not just at night. He would be in lectures and suddenly start responding to her voice, arguing with her out loud. Other students thought he was losing his mind. Some of his friends stopped talking to him. That's when Helen had taken him to a prayer minister. They had gone to a river outside the city. The prayers had been intense, powerful. The minister had declared a spiritual separation, breaking what he called an evil covenant. After that day, Victoria had vanished completely. Michael had gone on to finish his degree, start his career, and eventually meet Sarah. He thought that chapter of his life was closed forever. But now, sitting in traffic on the way home, doubt crept in. The family gathering took place that Saturday. Their house was filled with relatives, laughter, music, and the smell of home-cooked food. Helen and Michael's Aunt Rose sat together in the living room when Sarah approached them, holding a medium-sized gift box wrapped in elegant paper. "I have something for both of you," Sarah said, smiling warmly. "Just a small token of appreciation." The two older women smiled and carefully unwrapped the box. The moment they lifted the lid, two large rats leaped out, screeching. Helen screamed. Rose fell backward. Chaos erupted. People jumped up, some running toward the door, others trying to catch the rodents. Michael stood frozen, his face pale. "Sarah, what have you done?" Sarah looked at the box, then at the pandemonium around her, her hands beginning to shake. I didn't. Michael, I packed bath soaps. I went to the shop myself. I wrapped them. I don't understand how this happened." "You don't understand?" Michael's voice was cold now. "You put my portfolio in the refrigerator. You eat grass and chalk. And now rats. Rats in a gift box for my mother." "I didn't do this." Sarah's voice broke. "Please, you have to believe me." But Michael walked away, unable to look at her. The gathering ended early, guests leaving in uncomfortable silence. That night, Michael slept in the guest room while Sarah cried alone in their bedroom. The next morning, Sarah called her best friend Pamela, who had just moved to Leeds for work. Through tears, she explained everything. Pamela listened patiently, then spoke firmly. "Sarah, I've been telling you for years. You need Jesus. I keep inviting you to church, and you keep making excuses. Pamela, this isn't about religion. I think I need to see a specialist. Maybe a psychiatrist. Maybe I'm actually losing my mind." "You're not crazy. This is spiritual warfare. I've known you since we were children. This isn't who you are. Something is attacking you, and only God can fight this battle." Sarah sat on the bathroom floor, exhausted. "Let me think about it." "Don't think too long. This is getting worse." 2 days later, Michael was alone in the house when he heard a knock at the door. He opened it slowly, and his blood ran cold. Standing before him was Victoria. She looked exactly as she had in his dreams, but now she was solid, real, wearing a dark dress and a knowing smile. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" she asked. Before Michael could respond, she was already inside, sitting on his couch as if she had always belonged there. Michael stood in his own living room, feeling like a stranger. Victoria sat comfortably on the couch, crossing her legs and looking around as if appraising the decor. "What are you doing here?" Michael's voice came out as barely a whisper. "You're not real. This can't be happening." Victoria laughed softly. "Not real? Yet here I am, in your lovely home." "That's rather rude, Michael. Aren't you going to offer me tea? Get out. Now. I was freed from you." "The prayers." "Oh, the prayers," Victoria interrupted, examining her nails. "You went to that river. You had that minister pray over you. How sweet. But you made one critical mistake." "What are you talking about?" "That minister?" Victoria's smile turned cold. "He was from our kingdom. You can't break a spiritual covenant by consulting someone who serves the same realm. You're still mine, Michael. You've always been mine." Michael's legs felt weak. "That's not possible. We had a life together in the spirit realm. Did you know I was carrying our child when you betrayed me? When you tried to marry that human?" She spat the last word with disgust. "You're Sarah. She's completely under my control now. The grass. The chalk. All me," Victoria said proudly. "The car that stopped for no reason? Me. The portfolio in the refrigerator? Me. And I'm just getting started. I'm giving you 24 hours, Michael. Send her away, or I will destroy everything you love." At that moment, the front door opened. Sarah stepped inside, stopping when she saw the strange woman on their couch. Michael. Who is this? Victoria stood gracefully. Oh, hello Sarah. I'm Victoria, an old friend of Michael's from university. We were just catching up. Michael's throat was dry. Yes, we studied architecture together. Oh, how lovely. Sarah forced a smile, though her intuition was screaming that something was wrong. Victoria, can I get you anything? Tea? Coffee? No thank you, dear. I live nearby, actually, by the riverside. I was just passing through. Victoria walked to the door, then turned back. It was wonderful seeing you again, Michael. Let's not wait so long next time. She left, and the house fell into heavy silence. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing he had just lied to his wife. But how could he explain? How could he tell her that the woman who had visited was a spirit spouse who had been tormenting him since childhood? The next morning, Sarah tried to make things better. She prepared Michael's favorite breakfast: jollof rice, fried plantains, and fresh grape juice. She set it all on the table with hope in her eyes. Michael took a sip of the juice and immediately spat it out. What is this? It's grape juice, your favorite. Sarah, this is not juice. This is... He couldn't say it. He pushed the glass toward her. Smell it. Sarah picked up the glass, confused, and brought it to her nose. Her face went pale. The smell was unmistakable. Urine. I didn't. Michael, I swear I made grape juice. I watched myself pour it. Get out, Michael said quietly. What? Get out. His voice rose to a shout. I can't do this anymore. I need space. I need to breathe. Pack your things and leave this house. Sarah stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Then she quietly went to the bedroom, packed a bag, and left. She drove to Pamela's apartment in Leeds, crying the entire way. Pamela opened the door and immediately pulled Sarah into her arms. Oh, honey. It's going to be okay. You're safe here. 3 days later, Victoria appeared in Michael's house again, unannounced. This time, her demeanor had changed. She was no longer playful or coy. She was asserting dominance. It's time, Michael. Time for me to take my rightful place as your wife. You will never have me, Michael said, trying to sound brave. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You still think you can resist me? After everything I've shown you? You have the audacity to raise your voice at me. She stepped forward and slapped him hard across the face. The impact wasn't just physical. Something broke inside Michael's mind. The room began to spin. He started laughing uncontrollably, then crying, then screaming. He tore at his shirt, ran around the house speaking to people who weren't there, his mind completely shattered. Neighbors heard the commotion and called for help. Paramedics arrived and found Michael in a state of complete psychosis. He was sedated and taken to Manchester Royal Psychiatric Hospital. The next morning, Sarah's phone rang. It was Helen, Michael's mother, her voice heavy with grief and panic. Sarah, have you heard? Michael is in the hospital. They've admitted him to the psychiatric ward. The doctors say he's had a complete mental breakdown. He's talking nonsense, seeing things that aren't there. Sarah, I don't know what to do. Please, you have to help me. He needs you. Sarah's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, the phone still pressed to her ear. What is happening to us? She whispered. God, what is happening? Pamela rushed into the room and knelt beside her, holding her tightly as she sobbed. Sarah sat on Pamela's couch, staring blankly at the wall. She was 4 months pregnant, her husband was in a psychiatric ward, and her life had become unrecognizable. Pamela sat beside her, praying quietly. Sarah, Pamela finally said, you can't keep running from the truth. This isn't medical. This isn't psychological. This is spiritual warfare, and you're in the middle of a battle you can't fight alone. I don't even know how to pray, Sarah whispered. Then let me teach you. But first, you need to surrender. You need to give your life to Jesus Christ and accept that He's the only one who can save you and Michael. That evening, Sarah finally broke. She knelt beside Pamela and, through tears, prayed a simple prayer of surrender. She confessed her fears, her doubts, her pride. She asked Jesus to come into her life and fight the battles she couldn't fight. The next morning, they went to Pamela's church in Leeds. The sanctuary was filled with worshippers, and the atmosphere felt charged with something Sarah couldn't quite name. The pastor, a man named Reverend Cole, preached about spiritual spouses and demonic covenants. He spoke about how demons attach themselves through dreams, soul ties, and inherited curses. The enemy doesn't play fair, Reverend Cole declared. He attacks marriages, minds, and destinies. But our God is greater. He breaks chains. He cancels evil covenants. He restores what the enemy has stolen. After the service, Sarah approached the bookstand. She purchased 2 books, Prayer Rain by Dr. D.K. Olyakoya and Deliverance from Spirit Husband and Spirit Wife. That night, she and Pamela began midnight prayers. For 7 days, they fasted and prayed. Sarah read the prayer books, declaring scriptures over her life and Michael's life. On the 7th night, during prayer, Sarah had a vision. She saw Michael sitting in the middle of a circle of fire, chains binding his wrists and ankles. Victoria stood beside him, laughing, her voice echoing through the darkness. He belongs to me. You cannot take him from me. In the vision, Sarah stepped forward, holding a Bible. She opened it and began to speak with authority she didn't know she possessed. It is written in Psalm 2, "Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves against the Lord and against His anointed, but He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision." Victoria screamed, "No! His body belongs to me." Sarah raised her voice even higher. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 says, "What fellowship has light with darkness? What accord has Christ with Belial?" And 1 Corinthians 6 verse 19 declares, "Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? Therefore, Victoria, you are a trespasser. This body belongs to God." She pointed at Victoria and declared with power, Isaiah 49 verse 25 says, "Even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the tyrant be rescued, for I will contend with those who contend with you, and I will save your children." As Sarah prayed, fire fell from above. The chains binding Michael shattered with a loud crack. Victoria screamed as flames consumed her form, and she vanished into smoke. Michael stood up, free, looking around in confusion and relief. Sarah woke up gasping, her body covered in sweat. Pamela, who had been praying beside her, grabbed her hand. "What happened? What did you see?" "I saw him freed," Sarah whispered. "I saw the chains break." That same morning, at Manchester Royal Psychiatric Hospital, Michael suddenly sat up in his bed. His eyes were clear. His mind was calm. The nurse who had been checking his vitals jumped back in surprise. "Mr. Thompson? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Michael said, his voice steady. "I'm completely fine. What happened? How long have I been here?" The doctors were baffled. They ran tests, asked questions, but could find no explanation for his sudden recovery. It was as if the psychosis had never existed. When Sarah and Pamela arrived at the hospital later that afternoon, Michael was sitting up, dressed, waiting for discharge. The moment he saw Sarah, tears filled his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I'm so sorry." Sarah rushed to him and held him tightly. "It's okay. We're going to be okay now." "I should have told you everything from the beginning," Michael said. "I thought I had dealt with Victoria years ago. I thought that chapter was closed. I was wrong, and I put you through hell because of my silence." Sarah pulled back and looked him in the eyes. "Michael, We don't have time for guilt. The devil doesn't take retirement. We have to fight this together. She reached into her bag and pulled out the prayer books. I bought these for us. We're going to pray, we're going to study, and we're going to build our home on the foundation of Jesus Christ. Michael nodded, gripping the books tightly. Together. Helen came to the hospital that evening. When she saw her son well and whole, she fell to her knees in thanksgiving. My God has done it, she wept. My God has answered. The experience transformed the entire family. Helen became more serious about her faith. Michael's father, who had been lukewarm about spiritual matters, started attending prayer meetings. Even Michael's younger brother, who had always been skeptical, began asking questions about God. 3 months later, Sarah gave birth to healthy twins at Manchester Royal Infirmary. A boy they named Daniel, meaning God is my judge, and a girl they named Grace, meaning unmerited favor. Despite all the grass, the chalk, and the chaos, God had protected the babies perfectly. Michael and Sarah dedicated their children in church, making a public commitment to raise them in the ways of the Lord. They continued their midnight prayers, not out of fear, but out of devotion. They had learned that spiritual vigilance wasn't optional. It was essential. Their marriage, which had nearly been destroyed, became stronger than ever. They had faced the darkest spiritual warfare and emerged victorious, not by their own power, but by the power of Jesus Christ. Sarah often thought back to those terrible days when she couldn't control her cravings, when her mind felt clouded, when her actions weren't her own. She had been under attack, and she hadn't even known it. But God had been merciful. He had sent Pamela. He had opened her eyes. He had saved her family. One evening, as Sarah rocked Daniel to sleep and watched Michael reading to Grace, she whispered a prayer of thanksgiving. They had been through fire, but they had come out refined, stronger, and unshakable in their faith. The battle had been won, but they knew the war wasn't over. So they prayed. They studied. They remained vigilant. And they testified to everyone who would listen about the God who breaks chains, cancels evil covenants, and restores broken families. Television, what an incredible journey. From grass eating to complete deliverance, Sarah and Michael's story shows us that no spiritual battle is too great for God to win. If this story touched you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. The prayer books mentioned, Prayer Rain, and Deliverance from Spirit Husband and Spirit Wife, are powerful resources that you can find online. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful testimonies and real-life spiritual warfare stories. God bless you, and remember, greater is He who is in you than he who is in the world. Click the next video on your screen for another amazing testimony. See you there. The end.